what is the hopeful path here for you, solution-wise, out of this? It sounds like you're saying AI systems in the end are unverifiable, unpredictable, as the book says, unexplainable, uncontrollable,
That's the big one.
uncontrollable, and all the other uns just make it difficult to avoid getting to the uncontrollable, I guess. But once it's uncontrollable, then it goes wild. Surely there's solutions. Humans are pretty smart. What are possible solutions? Like if you were a dictator of the world, what do we do?
So the smart thing is not to build something you cannot control, you cannot understand. Build what you can and benefit from it. I'm a big believer in personal self-interest. A lot of the guys running those companies are young, rich people. What do they have to gain beyond billions they already have financially, right? It's not a requirement that they press that button. They can easily wait a long time. They can just choose not to do it and still have amazing life. In history, a lot of times, if you did something really bad, at least you became part of history books. There is a chance in this case there won't be any history.
So you're saying the individuals running these companies should do some soul searching and what? And stop development?
Well, either they have to prove that, of course, it's possible to indefinitely control godlike superintelligent machines by humans, and ideally let us know how, or agree that it's not possible and it's a very bad idea to do it, including for them personally and their families and friends and capital.
So what do you think the actual meetings inside these companies look like? Don't you think they're all the engineers? Really, it is the engineers that make this happen. They're not like automatons. They're human beings. They're brilliant human beings. So they're nonstop asking, how do we make sure this is safe?
So again, I'm not inside. From outside, it seems like there is certain filtering going on and restrictions and criticism and what they can say. And everyone who was working in charge of safety and whose responsibility it was to protect us said, you know what? I'm going home. So that's not encouraging.
What do you think the discussion inside those companies look like? You're developing, you're training GPT-5. You're training Gemini. You're training Claude and Grok. Don't you think they're constantly like underneath it? It's not, maybe it's not made explicit, but you're constantly sort of wondering like where's the system currently stand? What are the possible unintended consequences? Where are the limits? Where are the bugs, the small and the big bugs? That's the constant thing that the engineers are worried about. So like, I think super alignment is not quite the same as the kind of thing I'm referring to, which engineers are worried about. Super alignment is saying for future systems that we don't quite yet have, how do we keep them safe? You're trying to be a step ahead. It's a different kind of problem because it's almost more philosophical. It's a really tricky one because like you're you're trying to prevent future systems from escaping control of humans. That's really, I don't think there's been, man, is there anything akin to it in the history of humanity? I don't think so, right?
Climate change?
But there's a entire system which is climate, which is incredibly complex, which we don't have. We have only tiny control of, right? It's its own system. In this case, we're building the system.
Mm.
And so how do you keep that system from becoming destructive? That's a really different problem than the current meetings that companies are having, where the engineers are saying, okay, how powerful is this thing? How does it go wrong? And as we train GPT-5 and train up future systems, like where are the ways that can go wrong? Don't you think all those engineers are constantly worrying about this, thinking about this, which is a little bit different than the super alignment team that's thinking a little bit farther into the future?
Well, I think a lot of people who historically worked on AI never considered what happens when they succeed. Stuart Russell speaks beautifully about that. Let's look, okay, maybe superintelligence is too futuristic. We can develop practical tools for it. Let's look at software today. What is the state of safety and security of our user software, things we give to millions of people? There is no liability. You click, I agree. What are you agreeing to? Nobody knows, nobody reads, but you're basically saying it will spy on you, corrupt your data, kill your firstborn, and you agree and you're not going to sue the company. That's the best they can do for mundane software, word processor, text software. No liability, no responsibility, just as long as you agree not to sue us, you can use it. If this is a state of the art in systems which are narrow accountants, table manipulators, why do we think we can do so much better with much more complex systems across multiple domains in the environment with malevolent actors, with, again, self improvement, with capabilities exceeding those of humans thinking about it?
I mean, the liability thing is more about lawyers than killing firstborns. But if Clippy actually killed the child, I think lawyers aside, it would end Clippy and the company that owns Clippy. Right. So it's not so much about there's 2 points to be made. One is like, man, current software systems are full of bugs, and they could do a lot of damage, and we don't know what kind. They're unpredictable. There's so much damage they could possibly do, and then we kind of live in this blissful illusion that everything is great and perfect and it works. Nevertheless, it still somehow works.
In many domains, we see car manufacturing, drug development. The burden of proof is on the manufacturer of product or service to show their product or service is safe. It is not up to the user to prove that there are problems. They have to do appropriate safety studies. They have to get government approval for selling the product, and they are still fully responsible for what happens. We don't see any of that here. They can deploy whatever they want, and I have to explain how that system is going to kill everyone. I don't work for that company. You have to explain to me how it's definitely cannot mess up.
That's because it's the very early days of such a technology. Government regulation is lagging behind. They're really not tech savvy. A regulation of any kind of software. If you look at like Congress talking about social media, whenever Mark Zuckerberg and other CEOs show up, the cluelessness that Congress has about how technology works is incredible. It's heartbreaking.
I agree
honestly.
completely, but that's what scares me. The response is when they start to get dangerous, we'll really get it together. The politicians will pass the right laws, engineers will solve the right problems. We are not that good at many of those things. We take forever, and we are not early. We are 2 years away according to prediction markets. This is not a biased CEO fundraising. This is what smartest people, super forecasters, are thinking of this problem.
I don't. I'd like to push back about those I wonder what those prediction markets are about, how they define AGI. Because that's wild to me, and I want to know what they said about autonomous vehicles, because I've heard a lot of experts, financial experts, talk about autonomous vehicles and how it's going to be a multi-trillion-dollar industry and all this kind of stuff, and it's
a small fund, but if you have good vision, maybe you can zoom in on that and see the prediction dates
there's
and
a plot.
description.
Well,
I have a large one if you're interested, but
I guess my fundamental question is how often they write about technology. I definitely
there are studies on their accuracy rates and all that. You can look it up. But
Okay.
Even if they're wrong, I'm just saying this is right now the best we have. This is what humanity came up with as the predicted date.
But again, what they mean by AGI is really important there, because there's the non-agent-like AGI, and then there's the agent-like AGI, and I don't think it's as trivial as a wrapper. Putting a wrapper around one has lipstick, and all it takes is to remove the lipstick. I don't think it's that trivial.
You may be completely right, but what probability would you assign it? You may be 10% wrong,
yeah.
but we're betting all of humanity
Yeah.
on this distribution. It seems irrational.
Yeah, it's definitely not like 1 or 0%. Yeah.